Being great at sales is essential to your business and your career, but you and I both know that the stress of selling and dealing with constant rejection can be an emotional drain. My entire brand, No BS Selling, is based on the belief that professional sales is a skill and not a personality, and that to be better at sales takes constant refinement and a dedication to your craft. This show is for salespeople and entrepreneurs who are committed to improving their sales skills and getting better results, and are sick and tired of the BS game that often happens between buyers and sellers. Welcome to the No BS Sales Podcast, and I'm your host, Walker McKay. I'll help you and your sales team make selling easier, feel less cheesy, and be more lucrative. It's time to change the rules and level the playing field between you and the people you sell to. You're already good, let's be better. So my guest today on the No BS Sales Podcast is a really cool guy I met a couple of months ago. His name is Barry Capone. Barry's the principal and founder of the Capone Performance Group. He's an author, he's a trainer, and he's a sales consultant. And I love his tagline. He focuses on the number one reason salespeople fail. It's the inability to set appointments. Barry, we're going to talk today about prospecting and the art of actually setting appointments. So listen today, if setting appointments is something you struggle with, and if you don't think you struggle with them, it means you're not trying to set enough. So welcome to the show, Barry. I'm so glad you're here.
Well, thank you very much, Walker. I appreciate the opportunity to be with you and to get back with you as well. So let's get after it.
So tell me something. Take 2 minutes and tell us how in the world you got to be a world famous consultant on prospecting and actually setting appointments. What was your story? How'd you get there?
Banging my head up against the wall, I think, is probably the short answer to that. My background is that I've been everything from a door knocking geographic sales rep responsible for finding what I eat, killing what I eat, dressing what everything, to being a chief sales officer for a global company. And how I actually got into this business was I was on the road literally 3 weeks a month, and my wife came to me and said, "Look, if you want to stay married, we need to see a little bit more of you." And so it's very difficult to go into your CEO and say, "Hey, listen, I want to become a bag carrying sales guy," after being a chief sales operator.
Sure as hell is.
Or however you say that.
Yes.
And so
the man.
Yeah. So I actually realized that what I thoroughly enjoyed as a direct sales manager was the coaching aspect of it. Mm-hmm. And so I started this sales training company, and it was about 2 years into it when one of my clients came to me and asked me a question. He said, "Why is it that I have these guys on my team that can sell the proverbial ice cube to an Eskimo, but they can't, their pipelines are anemic. They can't set an appointment?" And from that, we spent about a year trying to figure out, why is that? And so from that, it was about 2006, because we've been around since 2014 or 2004.
Yeah.
We focused exclusively on the prospecting and appointment setting end of things.
It's interesting that you say that, because I hear this from time to time, and I call people on it as an excuse, where they say, "If you get me in front of somebody, I can sell them." Yeah, and I'm like, yeah, that's of course, right? If I give you a teed up somebody who's ready to buy, you can go close them. That's really great. Congratulations. So when you started doing this, as you dug into it and the science of it, what surprised you the most as you were learning about prospecting?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that the epiphany we had when we did that research was that the same skills, tools, and processes that we use once we're in front of somebody don't work when trying to set appointments. And let me give you an example. We get very good at handling objections, right? When somebody says, "Hey, the price is too high. Hey, I don't like those delivery terms." That we get really good at that. And we think that should work when we're trying to set an appointment.
Yep.
Because the only difference is the product, if you will. That if I am selling widgets, my sale once I'm in the buying cycle is to sell a widget. When I'm setting an appointment, I'm trying to sell the appointment.
Yep.
What we found was that there's three major differences. The first is in the beginning repartee. So if you and I, if you have agreed to meet with me, then when we sit down and we start talking about, you know, COVID-19 and what it's done to us and the weather and sports and, hey, oh my gosh, the NBA's playing again. All that stuff is warm, it's collegial, it's comfortable because we've agreed to put this time aside.
Yeah, they've already let you in the door. They've already agreed to let you spend some time. Yes.
You bet. The pace of the exchange is comfortable. It's okay if you ask me a question or if I ask you a question to sit back and say, wow, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a second. And the third thing is that the answers we get from the questions are based on logic, business logic, because both of us have the same objective in this meeting, which is I want to determine whether it makes sense for me to move forward in this process.
Yep.
When we pick up the phone to call somebody, it's exactly the opposite. First of all, when someone realizes this is a sales call, the defenses go up.
Yes.
You can almost feel it. I've got a client that likens it to the boxer who puts his hands up, you know, the gloves up in front of the face and protect the body in that. So what happens is it becomes adversarial sometimes. The second thing is
all right, let me stop for a second. How much of that do you believe, because I have certain thoughts about this, I believe that it's adversarial, first of all, because a lot of times the salesperson is defensive and doesn't think they should be there. Therefore, they act defensively, which often triggers something in the prospect. You think I'm missing something there?
Well, it's part of it. Although there are salespeople, I believe, that are supremely confident.
Yes.
That, you know, they bring value, and so they're not.
Okay.
I believe that most of it comes from just pure and simple, oh my gosh, it's a salesperson.
Yeah.
And one, I don't think I need this person. I
Yep.
did not wake up this morning thinking that I need sales training.
Yep.
Second is that you're interrupting me from doing something, so I don't want to talk to you.
Yep.
Ergo, they'll do anything, including lie to us.
Yep.
Which actually gets to that third thing, and that is the second thing, I guess, is the pace of the exchange, which leads into the third. The pace of the exchange is like 100-mile-an-hour fastball because they don't have to think. They fall into number three, which is they fall into what I call a conditioned knee-jerk response.
Okay.
We all have our favorite ways to get rid of the salesperson.
Yep.
And so we just fall right into that pattern. And so in order to be successful at countering that, you have to do a couple things. One is that if you deliver the same message every time, the first thing that'll happen is you will limit the number and type of responses you get. If you wing it, when you get somebody on the phone every time, you're going to make your job harder.
Yep.
Most people think they're making it easier, but they're making it harder.
Yep.
The second component is that you have to predict the number and types of responses you'll get. And the good news is there's only 4 ways people say no. And so, but most will only hear 1 or 2 of those. Most will hear the same response 90% of the time. So a lot of my clients, for instance, are in the commercial insurance world. What they hear is, hey, listen, I appreciate your call, but I'm totally happy with my current vendor.
Perfectly happy.
Yeah, I don't need you. So that's the epiphany that we had, that, oh my gosh, and you got to get past that knee-jerk response, because I don't want to make you think that your objection handling skills and that don't work. They do, but only after you get them past that knee-jerk response, get them to open their mind to a logic, value-based conversation. Make sense?
Yes. So do you believe, as I do, Barry, that if we go in and even on the sales pitch, even on the cold call or the prospecting call, as you call it, if we go into that and we sound like every other salesperson we start, our chances of getting in are very, very low.
Yeah, you're very, very correct. And what we preach is don't talk about what you think you can do for them. And the reason is, go back to those 2 rules, right? That they think they don't need you,
Yeah.
and they don't want you.
Yeah.
And so, so if you think about this, we couch everything in terms of, hey, listen, all I want to do is share with you what my clients who are just like you
Yep.
say about the value that we brought, how we increase their sales, how we double the number of initial appointments that their sales teams were setting. Whatever that message is, I want to couch it in terms of what my clients say.
Do you have a name for that?
No.
We call that a third party story.
Ah,
I'm not saying I can do that, but here's what other people say they can do.
exactly.
Because I don't want anybody arguing with me. I want to say, here's what other people say. What do you
Yes.
think about that?
So are you familiar with Robert Cialdini?
Yes, very much so.
So the principle of reciprocity, the
Love it.
principle of credibility,
Yeah.
that you are borrowing third-party credibility. There's also a school of thought in neurolinguistic programming.
Yep.
And it's how the mind hears what you're saying and reacts to it. So even though you very well know it's me saying my clients say that I walk on water, you're hearing, oh my gosh, this guy walks on
Walks
water.
on water. Right. But
Yeah.
if you say I walk on water, you're an arrogant
Exactly.
jackass. Right.
Yeah,
And nobody believes you. That's your
Yeah.
opinion. Nobody cares. And I tell
Exactly.
people all the time, I think you're in the same camp here, Barry. What's important in a sales call is for the salesperson to learn their prospects' opinions about things without sharing their own. Because if somebody feels safe to share their opinions, then their trust level goes up. And so the way we ruin that is to say, you've got a problem, you suck, you're having a problem with it. And if we tell them what their problems are, they will make sure we're wrong.
Exactly. And if you think about, the old, hey, you sell widgets and you sell them for less, right? So I can save you money. Well, guess what? My brother-in-law owns a widget company.
Yeah, who freaking
I
cares?
get the brother-in-law deal. You can't help me.
Yes.
You can't beat my price.
Yep.
So there's no way you can know that. So it's just inappropriate, if you will, is a nice way of saying it, to make that assumption.
Yes. So I get this question all the time. When's the best time to call? When's the best time to prospect? What's the time? Morning, afternoon?
I've written a couple of blogs that in research that I've done on days of the week that are best and times of the day that are best. And to be perfectly honest, I don't remember what's in those two blogs, and I'll tell you why. Every market that you sell into is different at the end of the day. And I'll tell you a story. So you think about us sales managers, right? So when we had sales teams and, most of us got them all together on Monday morning, right? So you think that calling sales managers on Monday morning is the absolute worst time of the week to do it.
Yep.
So one of the answers I always give to that is whenever you have time.
Yes.
If you got an hour right now is the best time to make some calls.
Yep.
What happened was that one Monday morning, I didn't have anything else to do, so I picked up the phone. I started making calls. Well, I call on VPs of sales. I call on chief sales operators. I call on CEOs. What I found was those guys are available on Monday morning because their sales guys are all in those meetings. So the VP of sales is sitting there in his office because all his district sales managers are meeting with their salespeople. So you just got to pick up the phone and you got to try. I use a tool that actually will tell you, it will give you a report based on when most of your appointments come from. But I'll give you another answer to that.
Yeah.
I am a procrastinator.
Yep.
I'm very good at this appointment setting stuff, but I don't particularly care to do it.
Yes.
So what I do is I do it the first thing in the morning.
Yep. Get it out of the way.
And I will tell you that even if I found that I was better or I could get through more often early in the afternoon, I would still do it in the morning because I will get into my day and then it won't get done at 1:30 in the afternoon.
Yes. So I agree with you. You know what I heard you say that's so funny, and I'm going to steal this. I heard you say disappointment setting. And I think that's what happens when we set appointments that aren't qualified, right? We go, oh, I got 5 appointments, and none of them freaking show up. So,
Yeah.
but it's funny. I turn that back around when I tell people, and maybe it's Barry's studies that look at different times of day, different days of the week, and actually that Tuesday at 1:30 was the best time to reach most people at a certain level. But the difference was it's like 0.00009% more effective. And so just pick up the damn phone and make the calls. And if it's Monday morning at 7:30 or it's Tuesday afternoon at 9, I find I catch most business owners if I call Friday afternoon after 4, because me and the other business owners are only freaking people left in the office at that time.
Exactly. And I'll tell you, if you call business owners, if that's your market, Saturday morning is a great time to do it.
How about that? At the office.
Yep. And there are no gatekeepers.
No, they're not. Interesting. I love that.
You know, as a matter of fact, when this COVID-19 stuff hit, we found that we measure 2 key ratios. One is we call it the conversation ratio. When I dial the phone, what percentage of the time do I get through to the decision maker?
Yep.
And then the appointment ratio, which is once I get them on the phone, what percentage of the time do I get the appointment? Mm-hmm. We average really good sales professionals will get about 12 to 15, 16% of the time get through to the decision maker.
Okay.
When COVID-19 hit and executives went home,
yep,
they forwarded their office phones to their cell phones. In like April, our clients were reporting back that they were getting through to the decision maker 50% of the time.
It's crazy.
What happened was those guys then got smart and realized what they had done, turned off their forward, and it went to 0 for about a month.
You know, it's interesting to me. I tell my clients, and I was this way, right? The first month that we all got sent home, people were mostly afraid and a little bit bored. By about week 3, they became mostly bored and not so afraid. If they could talk to anybody not inside their own damn 4 walls, they'd take the call. And I found that to be true.
Yeah.
And yeah, things have, and like always in a crisis, right? There's a spike of panic. Like, oh my God, we're all going to die. And then that slowly goes down, and then a normalcy, whatever that means, kind of creeps in until the next fucking crisis comes up.
Exactly. Yeah, but it's been an interesting ride this summer.
Yeah. So how would somebody know they needed your help? What kind of symptoms would they be having?
Oh, wow. Going back to my client's question, if there's a couple things when you could go look at a pipeline.
Yep.
And so, we know that the top of the funnel is wide and the bottom of the funnel is skinny, right? And so if the top of your funnel is not consistently wide, that's one issue. Mm-hmm. The next one is if you have if your salespeople ride the roller coaster of sales.
Yep.
So if you're on a kind of 90-day buying cycle kind of thing, that this quarter, Barry Capone hung the moon, he's at the top of the ladder, and next quarter he hides in the back of the room when we meet because he ain't got jack in the funnel.
Yep.
Those are 2 big signals that you're not consistently setting enough appointments to keep the funnel full and to keep the sales line kind of even. So do you ever talk
about where your ego or the salesperson's ego comes into play in this? Is that something you talk to your clients about?
A little bit. It's more confidence than ego. I believe that, for instance, call reluctance.
Yes.
Comes from, most people think it's a fear of rejection. And I think there are 2 kinds, first of all. One is that I suffer from is I don't want to make that first call. And
I don't like to get started.
Exactly.
Yeah,
once I'm started, I'm fine.
Right. Yes.
But so I there's all kind of tricks you can play with yourself And I've written a couple of blogs on that. You know, you can, you know, if you sit down and figure out how much each dial is worth, it's a whole lot easier to pick up the phone and make that dial if you think it's worth $100 or even $10, right?
Mm-hmm.
Once you the fear of doing it consistently is a different issue. We're not afraid. I don't think we're afraid of rejection, because if you think about it, we still get rejected at the end of the buying cycle, right? People still say no, and we don't mind that so much. What I believe is it comes from a couple of things. One is the fear of not being able to handle what goes on the call. It's almost embarrassment. And it's you know, I tell people that, you know, if I call somebody and I totally butcher the call, and then we just happen to walk past one another on the street an hour later, they don't know who the hell I am.
No.
Why does that bother us? But if we're truly professionals, and it does get to the ego part, then we're embarrassed that I've heard the same thing 12 times now and I still can't handle it.
Yep.
And so you gotta learn how to be prepared. You got to be able to predict what you hear, and then you got to invest some time. Invest, I hope, in a methodology like ours as to how you're going to handle that no. The second part of call reluctance, though, comes from just feeling overwhelmed of trying to keep a number of balls in the air at the same time. If you need, you know, 2-3 appointments a week or more, that means you got to be pursuing, you know, 100 people.
Yep.
And it's really hard to keep track of where you are in each pursuit. Most people, when I ask them at the beginning of one of our Prospectors Academies, how many times will you call somebody before the law of diminishing returns sets in? And the answers I get on the same team selling the same thing will be all over the map.
Yep.
When I say, how often will you call? Oh, I'll call them 6 times a day if I got time. Well, guess what? Caller ID, now that guy knows you're calling, you're stalking him.
Yep.
And so having a process and then having a tool to keep you in that process and do it efficiently is where I think the call rejection can be solved if it's solvable. There are some people that just don't want to do it.
They know what to do but don't want to do it. So when I was talking about ego a few minutes ago, I have maybe a different definition, which is where our ego is there to protect us. And what our ego doesn't want to be embarrassed. And so the ego will tell us, if you've worked hard for 30, 60, 90 days, and all of a sudden you've taken some from top of the funnel to middle of the funnel towards down the funnel, and you're closing all this business, or you're on that part of it, the ego says to you subconsciously, hey, you know what? You've already worked pretty hard. Things have changed. You don't really need to work that hard anymore. It is natural for you now. And so then what happens is they go, yeah. And they close the business and they forget it took them 90 days to get there.
Yeah.
The next thing they look up and go, holy shit, I got nothing in my pipeline. And so I talk to people, and maybe you do the same, about that whatever we're doing now is what's going to feed us 90 days from now.
My mentor, so let's see, today is the 20th of August. It's August, September, October, November. If he was talking to me today, he would say, so how's your November?
I love that.
Because that is exactly what you do today is what's going to close November 20th.
Yep. And if you're busy closing shit in October, and if you're busy closing shit in it's 60 days from now, and you're not continuing to put something on top of the pipeline, you'll be dead.
Yeah, but you make a very good point. And some of it goes beyond ego, and it's just, you get tired.
Yeah.
It is stressful when you're in the middle, particularly in, a lot of my career was, I sold big ticket stuff.
Like what?
Software, hardware, in the computer industry. I closed 2 deals that were north of $50 million.
Yo.
The CEO of my company was calling me at 11 o'clock at night and I was in the central time zone and he was in the eastern time zone. So it's like, so the pressure, you know, it was a public company. So
Oh, shit.
$50 million impacts what goes to Wall Street, right?
Right.
So, so
Probably
the pressure of that is incredible. Now you go back and what I do now, you know, if I don't get a sale, I'm not going to starve to death.
And also, you got to have that belief too, because I was just coaching a client earlier, and he's got a big meeting with a big prospect, and it's a nice big sale. And I said, here, Bo, you need to believe right now you got absolutely nothing. You got nothing, because if you go in there thinking you got something, you'll put pressure on yourself. You'll try and put pressure on them, and then when it doesn't work, you'll be pissed. You'll kick the carpet for 6 months. You got to recognize this is all practice. I got to go give my best shot. If they say no is completely okay, and move on. One more thing from you, Barry, because you're the expert here. What is your thought about voicemail? How do you use voicemail, if at all? What do you tell your clients?
Yeah, here's what I think about voicemail. There are two objectives that we have when we pick up the phone to call somebody. One of them is the obvious one, right? I want an appointment on this call.
Yep.
The second one is that you got to realize that it ain't going to happen. Okay, if I go back to my conversation ratio, I'm only going to get through to the guy 15% of the time.
Yep.
Which means that 85% of the time, I'm not. So I believe that about 80% of the time it takes to place a call is already gone by the time you get to that voicemail. So when you bring up the record, you look at it, see where you are in the process so you don't make a fool of yourself. Then you dial the phone, you go through a phone tree, you go through a gatekeeper, you listen to the outgoing message. About 80% of the time you're going to invest on that call is already gone. So don't just throw it away. That's
great concept. Love that. Yep.
Number one reason for leaving voicemails. Then we generally, there are exceptions, but we will generally call somebody 4 times. We'll call them every 5th business day.
Okay.
The first 3 times, we're going to leave 3 separate, distinct voicemails. They are the 3 top reasons our clients buy from us. And remember, we're going to put it in terms of my client says.
Yep.
And then the 4th one is what we call a move-on message. The move-on message is a sense of urgency message. So first of all, if I go make all 4 calls and I don't get any calls back, I've not wasted those 4 dials. I've branded myself. I've begun to tell a story. I'm going to put that target away, and I'm going to call them again at some point down the road, 90 days, 120, whatever.
Yep.
So the story builds, okay? I can't tell you how many people take my calls because they say, you are the most persistent guy on the planet.
Isn't that funny?
But the other component of it is that and I also believe in emails, that you should also send a complimentary email which says, hey, I just left you a voicemail.
I do too.
Regarding same topic, right? It's just in written speech versus.
Why do you think that's so important? I agree with you, but why do you think that's so important?
Well, I'll give you the quantitative answer to that. You will triple your response rate. And I think a part of it is there are some people who they just do everything by email. They would prefer doing it than by phone. But I'll tell you the other reason, there's actually 6 reasons for leaving voicemails, but the second most important one is that, go back to our discussion of what happened during COVID and people forwarding their phone. Many executives use their voicemail to screen their calls.
Oh, yeah.
They
do some not do that?
Yeah, good point. They just don't answer the phone.
Yeah.
So if you don't leave a voicemail, you absolutely 100% wasted the time it took you to make that call.
100%.
And you'll never talk to them.
I agree with you. I think that's great. You know, this has been really fun, Barry. I really appreciate you taking the time to come on the show. I loved a couple of things. You gave me some great nuggets here. And number one was some couple of reasons for call reluctance. And one was the fear of not being able to handle the call, not to be able to handle what you're afraid that you won't be able to do the call well. And the second one is to feel overwhelmed, even at the thought of keeping all the balls in the air that you don't even have the balls in the air yet. I mean, it's all this, this game that you play with yourself. And
Yeah.
And the voicemail stuff, excellent. Barry, how would somebody get in touch with you if they want to know more about your method and your formula that you use to train companies?
Boy, I would absolutely love for people to get in touch with me. And so let me give you, first of all, phone number, because I'm old fashioned.
Great.
817
Yep.
224
Yep.
9900.
Okay.
My email is bcaponi, so BCAPONI,
Yep.
at caponipg.com.
PG. What's PG?
Performance Group.
Performance Group. I just said that. Okay.
And the third is you can find me on LinkedIn.
Okay.
And as a matter of fact, on LinkedIn, Barry Caponi, I've got some articles. Matter of fact, there's a call reluctance article out there. And then of course I've got the obligatory website at caponipg.com.
Barry, it's been a real pleasure having you on the show. No BS sales team, I hope you've taken notes, because you guys have been listening to a master of prospecting and a master of somebody who can set appointments. If you're listening, since you're listening, please press subscribe. How about rate and review the podcast? That helps me tremendously. My audience, pretty cool, has doubled in the last 6 months. So I freaking love that. And we're continue to grow. So if somebody needs to hear this, please share it with them. I've got a newsletter that has been, again, that list is growing as well, but I send out twice a week. Kind of sometimes it's something I'm thinking about, some things that I come across in sales that I feel like you guys don't know about. And then Fridays, I send out more of a compilation of some videos that I've done, a link to my podcast, a link to some books that I'm reading that I recommend. So things like that. So if you want to be on that, on the No BS newsletter list, if you will text the letters NOBS, no spaces, to the number 66866, NOBS to 66866, or email me, walker@walkermckay.com, and I will put you on that list. Barry, thank you so much for being on the show today. You're a true professional, and it is an honor to have you here with us.
Walker, thank you very much. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed this, enjoyed talking to you. And as you can tell, I could talk about this till the cows come home. So.
All right, guys, thank you very much.